Hey everyone, welcome to Raising Vibrations, your Simon today. And in today's video, we're going to be looking at the full moon in Pisces. And this is for the 20th and 21st of September 2021. Hope you're well. And as always, I hope that this full moon and new moon cycle finds you at a place of serenity and peace within yourself. So in the full moon or the new moon video that we last talked about, I'd said that there was quite a lot of material in there, and I could probably speak for 3 hours and still feel like I haven't covered the depth and the complexity that not only does this full moon, but also the new moon bring to us. So another invitation to be able to get even deeper into that process. So we got lots of insights for you, lots of thoughts, lots of reflections, and both Jen and I hope that what we share with you today is going to be empowering to yourself and maybe even supports that sense of synchronicity that you see between what's going on in your life and how this planetary orchestra is actually reflecting these deep and profound changes that are taking place in our human experience. So the message for the new moon, or the full moon in Pisces, is structured around a few layers. And so it's, what are your core values? What language do you use to build your sense of identity around those core values? How do those core values serve you? And the other way around, how you attach to those core values and how do you serve them? And how does that lead to a deeper permeating sense of purpose and meaning? And the complexity of all of those merging together is what we see as the way that we form our reality. So here, the full moon message is the observation of the values that you hold on to, that you see as important to your life, the difference between the ones that actually matter and the ones that you or society has said to you, hey, you should do that because that's meaningful, right? To separate those two, to individuate from that. And to be able to start to look at where there is a growing sense of meaninglessness that is arising, and to begin to start to wonder and focus in on and begin to see where that inspiration is leading you to. A new sense of inspiration, a new arising state of, wanting to be free from these definitions, these words that we use to label and define our sense of purpose as human beings, to kind of break out of that. So that's the message today. And what I'm going to go and do is we'll do some chart work and I'll give you a summary, and hopefully by the end of this video, you've got something concrete to actually reflect on. So let's jump into the chart work right now. All right, so full moon in Pisces. Here we have the chart for the exact full moon. And here you can see Mars and the sun are in an aspect with each other, conjunction. So leading up to this actual full moon, we've got Mars crossing the sun, which can be sometimes an incredibly explosive experience. Lots of emotions on the surface, right? Wanting to get things moving and done, feeling that frustration. Really, really kind of getting in touch with what does purpose really mean for us. So there's a hint there with that Mars sun conjunction, like what does purpose mean for us? And then you have the moon in opposition to all of this over here, but it crosses Neptune just before it makes this full moon aspect. And we know that the Neptune archetype has to do with our relationship to meaning, and most importantly, also inspiration, right? So Neptune has two polarities to it. We can have meaning and inspiration derived from something that cultivates this sense of purpose, right? Something bigger than ourselves. And yet at the same time, it can also make us acutely aware of the absence of those things in our lives. So it's not a coincidence that you'd see purpose and meaning as a huge component of this chart, because of the fact that not only Mars transits the sun, but moon moves over this, right? You've got this drive with Mars, and you have the moon crossing Neptune, kind of illuminating this. Where is this purpose? Where is this purpose? And I'd go as far as to say then, just I talked about in the introduction, that the deeper complexity around purpose and meaning in the world that we've been living in at this point in time has been primarily found in the outer world, right? In the objective world, in our things that we possess, the labels we give ourselves, and the job titles we have, and people, develop a sense of fulfillment in this superficial way. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that the true essence of meaning is the origin comes from within inside of ourselves. And we're in a time right now where this transition between finding purpose and meaning and self, right? Who are we actually in the outside world is rendering an absence of that. And so it's forcing this collective inquiry into what is actually true, what is actually real, what is actually meaningful. And the beauty of this aspect here, this full moon, is wonderment. The realization that there are so many sort of challenging things going on emotionally in the world right now. But if we stop to look at just nature, or if we stop to just look at the beingness of things, a lot of those challenges actually seem to fade away. They seem to become less important in the context of the grand scheme of things. And it doesn't mean that they're to diminish these things. It's just we have to ask ourselves the question, and this is something to ponder about, is where is the, where is that divide between the fundamental nature of creation itself as just beingness and the manifestation of humanness in our outer world? A lot of these complexities, like work, for instance, or a job title, for instance, that we made these up in order for us to facilitate other cycles, and those cycles facilitated other cycles. And we're in this kind of construct. And so a lot of these things that we do struggle with actually really, in the essence of things, very Neptunian speak at the moment, don't actually exist in that way. They're man-made in that sense. So just something to deeply contemplate and ponder there around this full moon. So let's go have a look at, firstly, this Venus and Scorpio in relation to Uranus and Taurus. And both of them, as you can see, are squaring Saturn and Aquarius. Saturn's retrograde, making Venus here a retrograde planet for the period that it is in square to. And of course, Uranus is also retrograde. So this is a very internal retrograde-y type of Venus. And for those of you that are a bit confused about what I mean by that, from the point of view of evolutionary astrology, which I do seem to agree with, whenever you have a planet that is moving direct, but in aspect to a planet that is retrograde, like as you can see here, both of them, this planet is going to have more of a retrograde quality to it than it is going to have a direct quality to it. And to be even more specific, not retrograde in its totality, only retrograde in the context of its relation to the planet it is retrograde to. So themes associated with Saturn, Venus will have retrograde qualities to it. Okay. But if you want to like sort of look at the relationship between, say, Venus over here in Scorpio and Mars as an example, it won't have a retrograde quality to it. Okay. So just to kind of give some cool teaching, but also for clarification. All right. So you got Venus here in Scorpio, and the key theme here is deep emotional and psychological realizations around our attachments and our psychological, our emotional and psychological patterns and the attachments associated with this, right? It's very deep. It's bringing to the surface. So we're going to feel things. And what this transit actually offers, particularly the Saturn square Venus over here, is an opportunity to really kind of deeply examine these layers of attachments and how they play out in our lives, right? We form bonds to things. That's why you'll hear me talk about bonds and relationships in the intro here, because you can see the Venus, you can see there's the Libra archetype there. We can see that Venus is to do with relations. And you can see here that it's in Scorpio. So what types of attachments do we have to things in our lives? Just to kind of look at them and ask ourselves the question, how do they serve us? What language do I build around this attachment that facilitates my ongoing attachment to it, right? So what I mean by language is, language is an incredibly powerful tool because it allows us to communicate, right? It allows us to connect, but it also frames our reality. So if you go watch a film called The Arrival, right? Or if you research the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, or neurolinguistic now, you will find that there's tremendous amount of insight around the way in which we structure our reality, form our reality, and the words that we use, particularly in the West, right? So what language do I use? What language do I form around my attachments that facilitate the emotional bond? And this can be a very insecure archetypal structure, between Venus and Saturn, right? Because Saturn, the square to Saturn, Saturn meaning the actual structure, right? The integrity of our inner state of being, it's being challenged. Venus, from an evolutionary astrology perspective, in relation to Saturn, is in what is called a crisis in consciousness square. Okay. And this is an invitation, as in the square between Venus and Saturn. Can you see it there, on little left-hand corner? That square suggests a tension between something that was and has been, and what has been for sort of like going on, like what we've been consistently doing, and the desire to want to break out of that, the desire to want to liberate from that. So these impulses that are coming from these two archetypal structures will create a pattern of dissatisfaction. I need to individuate. I need to separate myself. I need to see myself differently. And of course, because it's retrograde, it pushes that internal processing within inside of ourselves, right? Scorpio is a water sign, and it's very internal. It's very private. So my thoughts around this connection here is, to talk to people, to communicate with somebody who you can trust, and allow for the objectification of those feelings, to really objectify, to communicate what it is that you feel, sense, and really examine these underlying attachments. So that's kind of an internal process within ourselves. And then you've got the opposition that happens with Uranus, and then of course the ongoing square with Saturn. And so this brings into focus two things. One, the planetary nodes of Neptune. Two, the collective impact that this is having. So one, the planetary nodes of Neptune sit here, like so, there. And we now have a planet that is squaring that planetary node. And then, of course, we have another planet that's also squaring it as well. So let's back up here. What is a planetary node? The planetary nodes are the same thing as the south and north node. No difference. The only difference, well, there is a difference, but not. The only difference between the moon's nodes and, say, planetary nodes is that the moon's nodes are something that we can actually feel in our environment, right? We can see the pattern if we pay close attention, where the planetary nodes are something a little bit more complex, a little bit more deeper. But if you study it, you'll see how the planetary nodes are essentially the shaping mechanisms for our culture, for our reality. So the south and north node of Neptune, as in the planetary node of Neptune, is being triggered deeply here, not only by Saturn, it's also being triggered by Venus. It's also being triggered here by Uranus, right? So you can see there are personal planets in our solar system that are affecting the actual plane that Neptune evolves on, right? The actual evolutionary path that Neptune evolves on. And just to highlight it even more over here, look at what planets are being activated. So you can, for those of you that are struggling to follow this, I get this, right? But what I'm really trying to show you here is just the profound nature of not only how this astrology is presenting itself at this point in time, but the way in which it is going to impact the collective. This is not a chart that speaks to some little kind of thing that's going to change. Maybe you feel the chart, maybe you don't. No, this is a collective pattern that is bringing to the surface deeper states of human awareness, human behavior. This is a massive change within the actual emotional and psychological fabric of our reality. It's big. And what it speaks to is an uncovering and an awakening within our collective awareness regarding the way that we as human beings see purpose, see meaning, how we constitute what is valuable in our lives and what we don't. This is a metamorphosis on an epic scale. And this will play out. Like if you want to see when this will actually begin to surface itself, probably within the next 6 months, you will start to see. And Venus's relationship to Uranus over here is profound in a way, because what will eventually look like, what it will look like on the surface, is a fracturing. It'll be a complete separation in the way that we as human beings will consider what is important to us and not. And every single person here is undergoing this deep unconscious metamorphosis, and it will permeate to the surface, and we'll see it about 6 months from now in full bloom, and it will be very clear. And like I said again, Saturn's going to go direct in October, so is Pluto, so is Jupiter. So there's going to be some huge changes taking place for us on a social level, on a collective level, and individually, where it will all begin. Okay. And here it's the message here, like we said in the extra introduction, is, how do we value things? Like question the reasons why we value the things we value. Question how our sense of self-worth is. Where is your sense of self-worth? Is it linked towards your job title? Is it linked towards your capacity for something? Do you see your sense of purpose as a commodity, right? Or do you come into a deeper state of expansion within yourself that doesn't have any of those human mental limitations? That the essence of your beingness is undefined. The personas and language and personality structures that we put in place in order to interface with this reality, right? That's part of this, but that is not your true self. That is not your true value. This is just mechanisms in which we see and facilitate and run scripts of programming. And this is time for radical wake up, Cordia. We're missing out on things. We're not seeing things for who we truly are. We're seeing it through the lens of what is being shaped by culture, shaped by other people's personas, other people's perspectives. But what's yours? So that deep questioning comes from the Chiron and Aries inconjuncting. So Chiron here, and it's inconjuncting Venus, right? And Chiron's message to all of us in the context of this pattern is, he wants to bring us awareness, right, around our choices, our actions, our commitments. When we make a choice and we follow through with that, we're moving in a direction, whether we know that or not, right? If we know what the direction is or not. This Chiron in Aries is going to point to self-awareness, right? How are we becoming more conscious of ourselves? And so that inconjunct between Aries and Venus over there promotes this uncomfortability around the moment we have this sudden aha moment, Venus in opposition to Uranus, and we change. What we will feel is that step out of something that's familiar, something that's the same, something that we've always told ourselves to be the truth, and into deeper awareness. And as we step into that deeper awareness, what is it that you feel? Do you feel newness? Do you feel direction? Do you feel an exploration essence in you? Or do you freak out? Do you go, oh, I got to keep things the same. I got to keep things the same. I can't break out of that social morphed sense of self. So the inconjunct between Scorpio and Aries actually is what creates that dynamic tension in our psyche between evolving past our limitations and and staying in what makes us feel empowered. So there's a challenge there with that pattern that brings us into awareness. And so that aspect will personify this struggle between trying to let go of something, the past patterns, and the desire to want to emerge into and break out of right? These patterns. Okay. All right. Now, the other thing that's also interesting to me here is this, right? There's this Chiron, Aries, inconjunct, and then you've got Mars in opposition here. And this one's also profound. Because if you've formed relationships with people or with objects, right, your career or your identity, if you formed a relationship to that, up until a moment of deep paradigm shifting experiences, up until the moment where you are not in that pattern, right? So you break out of this pattern, you revolutionize, you have this insight, you're like, wow, I've changed, or I see things differently. The relationship is still the same. The pattern that you've held, the internalized image of how people have received you and seen you, and the attachments and the expectations you have to the roles that you should be playing, they still remain the same. And when you interact with your new self, there's conflict. There's conflict because the vibration, the patterning is different. And so what this opposition between Mars and Chiron, and eventually Mars squaring Pluto later on in the month, you'll see that tension where we will find ourselves trying to form new bonds and new relationships to people. And some of them will be tension. There will be tension because, again, all of us have an internalized sense of self. And when we meet somebody that has shifted in themselves, it puts us off center. And that's where, again, you will see this aspect, right? This uncomfortability, this dissonance between something that was once and something that is emerging, right? So there's something to observe. And then going further on to not so much personal relationships, but our relationship to life, our relationship to our ecosystem, the relationship to our values as they shift. The things that we gave meaning to no longer have that meaning. And with the absence of meaning, it's unavoidable. It's painful sometimes, right? So there is more shifting that's going to be taking place for us, and it will. And you'll see this will be an adjustment phase. It's temporary. It's not forever. But you will begin to notice yourself being more committed to your authenticity. And as you do that, you'll start to align with the frequency and the vibration of those that you actually want to participate for. Okay. Pluto and Capricorn. Here we got a chart. It's squaring Mercury, as you can see. And of course, the Mars is trining that Pluto. So to me, what this just really reflects is the dynamic tension between, how we've formed language and labels around our reality, and the tension here between Mercury and Pluto suggests this wanting to liberate from that, right? Feeling limited by our language, feeling limited by, I am a CEO. Okay, great. But that's not who you actually are. That's just a personality construct to facilitate a certain pattern of behavior that, from the point of view of a social structure in a society, it's a part of a piece in the cog, right? But it's not who you are. It's not what makes you alive. It's the things in the experience. It's the essence of the beingness that's actually real there. So what is it really? Who are you really behind that? Well, I like to inspire. I enjoy sharing ideas with people. My desire for leadership, and these are the things, these are the qualities that we want to start to see in ourselves. They're more verb-oriented behaviors, right? I like the magic of XYZ, right? So kind of really changing that language around it there. So that's that. And when I come back to the sun and the moon opposition, right? I just pointed it out there, and this is where the sun moon in the context of this conversation is just permeating the relationship between ourselves as human beings and our ecosystem to life, right? The separation that occurs in our sense of identity is because on some level we maybe see ourselves as not connected to our ecosystem, not connected to the earth, or not connected to life in the way that is fluid and flowing. We believe that we want to influence our lives. We want to, to put dominion over things. And so that creates a whole sort of distortion. And we try to plan our life according to a specific construct. And yet we're not actually in touch with the flow of what it is that the actual genome, right, our genetic material, our deeper self, has come to fulfill, has come to experience, has come to witness, has come to observe, digest, to see. And so the experience of life is, in a sense, kind of lost from a deeper, spiritual perspective, a deeper soulful perspective. It's not as enriched. And what we do instead is we give time and attention to the things that we have to convince ourselves to be the truth, as opposed to what's actually the truth for us individually. And that's what I want to kind of leave you with today on this aspect over here. All right. So yeah, I hope that what I was sharing in the information there in the chart over there kind of really, brought through some thinking, some thought-provoking experiences that would allow for awareness to develop around yourself and around what you feel and sense to be true in your life right now. And just like I said right in the beginning, this is about really beginning to observe the core attachments to the values that we have and asking ourselves the question, is this really what I actually value? Is this really who I am? And again, to start looking at some of the language that we may use to convince ourselves, to facilitate a belief around why that value is in place. Is it genuinely your inspiration, or is it the meaning assigned by a greater culture, or by how we have perceived our life worth to be? And that can go for anything. It can go for the relationship between you and the objects in your house, to the relationship to yourself inside, and to the relationship to the people around you. So some life-changing experiences. And as I said, this is going to be a pattern that you will see emerge within the collective and be, really strong within about 6 months from now. So that's that over there. I want to leave you with a couple of things, guys. So here are some of my questions that could potentially provoke some thinking as well around you. And that says, what changes are you currently going through right now? What struggles are you currently going through right now that are actually a reflection of you stepping out of your past, you stepping out of who you are no longer, or maybe sometimes even who you never were, but needed to adopt a certain state of way of being in order to survive, in order to facilitate a purpose that's not yours truly, right? Where are you becoming alive? Look around you. Pay attention to the conversations that render the sense of, this is not awakening. This is not alive for me. And start to notice that thread of where you're being pulled to. Where are you alive, right? In your day, in your life, and the things that you interact with. Right? What inspires you, right? What truly inspires you? Go deep, really, really sit with that, and allow your imagination and your sense of connection to yourself to wander into the places that your mind would say, but that's not inspirational. What inspires you? Who inspires you? Right? What resources do you use, or have used, or can tap into to experience a deeper connection or relationship to what it means to be alive, what it means to be inspirational? What does an inspirational life look like for you? What do you really need? Right? What do you really need in your life? Take a look around you and ask yourself that question. What is it that you really need? Right? And you'll actually find not only what I was talking about with Chiron and Venus in conjunct there, you'll find that there's a lot of the things that we have around us that are just there because maybe at a certain point we needed them for that moment. And so this is an opportunity to kind of really just flush out the things that are, in a sense, no longer part of your trajectory. Make sense? Okay, cool. So I hope that was inspirational, got you to think about those things. I want to let you guys know as well that both me and Jen, we are in a position where we would like to support those who want to explore that deeper sense of inner self understanding. They want to be able to go deeper into the layers of your own soul's work and process and journey. So if this is something that is on the top of your kind of reality right now, if you value your own self-exploration, then beneath this video you'll see a link, and you can book a call with us. And it's a free call. It's about 15 to 20 minutes long, and let's get in touch. Let's see if we can maybe support you in being able to get into a deeper state of self-understanding, self-empowerment, and self-realization. So like I said, if that's something that you are inspired by, if you want to jump into that, book a call with us, and let's see, maybe there's an opportunity to support you in that process. Okay. So yeah, that's that. Other than that, guys, have an amazing week. We'll see you in another video. Take care. Bye-bye.